got.
Okay, so Crazy Rich Asians, which I know that there's been sort of an awful lot of interest in. This is based on a best-selling novel by Kevin Kwan, and the story is that there is a Chinese-American called Constance Wu, who is an economics professor at NYU, and she's really smart and understands game theory and all those kind of things. And she's going out with this guy, Nick, played by Henry Golding, who she doesn't realise is fabulously wealthy until the moment that he says to her, look, I'm my best friend's getting married. I want my best friend's getting wedding. My best friend's getting married. And I want you to come with me. We go to Singapore. You can get to meet all the family. And they get onto the plane. And when they get onto the plane, they turn left. Okay. She says, hang about a minute. We can't. We're surely down in economy. And he says, no. We're not in economy. We're in super class. And they get into super class, and suddenly there's people bring them champagne. She says, how can we afford this? And he says, well, it turns out that my family is sort of more wealthy than you know. Then it's only then that she realises that basically she's dating the heir to a dynasty, and one which is not keen on outsiders. So then, over the course of a few frantic days, she finds herself going head to head with the family and the entourage, all of whom live a life of, spectacular wealth. On the one hand, you have Eleanor, who's the mother, played by Michelle Yeoh, who is impressively imperious. Then there is this all-knowing grandmother figure and a gaggle of ex-wannabes and people who want to be next girlfriend and who were next exes, all of whom have designs on him. Only her former classmate, played by Awkwafina, who was most recently seen in Ocean's 8, seems to have her back. And her family are even crazier than his. Here's a clip.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Oh, I know.
Rachel. I heard you thought Alma was the cook. Ah.
On the bright side, you're the talk of the party. People like your dress.
Oh, I did that.
Oh,
I know.
this is a chic 70s goddess.
So, Oliver, are you a cousin too?
Well, I'm one of the poorer relations. The rainbow sheep of the family. But I make myself useful. Whatever the youngs want, I procure. Golden koi fish, Honghuali furniture, a rare Cambodian gong.
Why would they want to buy a rare Cambodian gong?
Because they can.
I'm sorry, I thought that joke was funny even in just the audio version of it.
Yes.
Why would they want to buy a rare Cambodian bong? Okay, so as I said, adapted? Mark. I mean, I'm 54. Adapted for Aeroplane Station from a novel by Jason Isaac said, a novel by Kevin Kwan. And I hadn't read the novel, and I'd seen just some of the publicity, and I was, all I knew about it was that there was an awful lot being written about the fact that you haven't had a cast like this since Joy Luck Club, and that therefore the film had a great cultural importance, and therefore was having to carry a lot of baggage with it. And I went into it not knowing much other than what I'd seen in the trailer, and what I thought was this, that despite the fact that the narrative is kind of creaky and has very familiar rom-com genre beats, I may have mentioned this before, but I did this series for BBC Four.
Oh, right.
There is a relevance here about the way in which, you get repeated narratives through genres. And there are certain, tropes, to use that word, that you get in rom-com films. And it's not a problem that you do. It's just a question of whether they're infused with something new and something vibrant, or whether you get the feeling that you've kind of seen all those things before. So the trick is to breathe new life into old riffs. And actually, I thought this did that rather well. Constance Wu is great. Michelle Yeoh is terrific, actually. I mean, not least because she's the support so basically you have supporting players like Awkwafina and Nika Santos and Ken Jeong who are very funny, and then you have Michelle Yeoh's character who is very not funny in a way which is kind of impressive in a comedy. The other thing is that some people have compared this. They said, well, what's the difference between that and the Sex and the City films, which I famously hated, because those were films about people in these kind of, fabulously wealthy environments, enjoying the fabulous wealth. And there's something about the movie, the fact that the title is Crazy Rich Asians, which is they're crazy rich. That's how rich they are. They're not just rich, they're crazy rich. And so the whole thing is taking place within this world of extravagant wealth. The difference for me, and I thought this was kind of crucial, is I always felt that with Sex and the City, particularly the second one, that actually what the thing was doing was reveling in this wealth, it was just sort of swimming in this sort of sea of indulgence. But what Crazy Rich Asians manages to do is to, on the one hand, depict all that stuff, but on the other hand, retain an oddly sort of standoffish attitude towards it, because all the way through there is this sense that wealth is weird in a way which is not great and hey, fabulous, wouldn't this be brilliant if you had more money than you could possibly know what to do with. There's also underneath the comic surface, some of which is done really sharply, some of which not so sharply, but underneath there is this sort of this line of steely resolve and melancholy, particularly in the character of the mother, who is played as somebody who initially is, terrifying, and then you get to know more about her and more about her own backstory. And the film did a remarkable thing, which is there is a moment when you discover something about her character that actually made me think, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. And then our central character, her backstory too, takes you to places that you don't expect the film to go. Fun also to see a movie in which, the narrative is completely sort of it's about the women's relationship with each other and how power is passed down from one generation. So whereas on the one hand you have this sparkly, frothy surface, which I think is the thing that you get from the trailer, the film does manage to juggle something else underneath that, something about the way that that these different sections interact, something about the burden of family history. And all this is going on whilst on the surface you have something which is, frothy and fun and features many kind of laugh out loud moments. So I was kind of, I do think that some of the filmmaking is slightly sort of creaky. I think there are some moments in it which are fairly shambolic, but I was engaged, and I went in with a kind of, Mike, what I'm like. I'm slightly sniffy critic sometimes. No, but I went in thinking, okay, win me over, and it did. And as we moved into the the sort of the final act of the film, I did find myself being moved and being charmed and thinking, okay, this has worked. This has won me over, and I like these characters, and all those anxieties that I had about isn't this just a riff on the Sex and the City 2 idea, did go away. So I think it worked.